Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi. Now today we're going to be looking at making a new tabard for a vintage Action Man Space Ranger. Now I've covered these figures a couple of times in various videos showing different ways of restoring bits of them. I've done one video about the Space Ranger Captain because he comes with a rubber suit which tends to perish over time, but there are replacements of those available. I did another one sort of restoring a Space Ranger figure, and I made some bits out of ribbon and stuff, but today I thought I'd take it one step further and try and remake this tabard, which is something that is made of a very thin sort of silver-backed fabric, which really does perish over the years. It gets quite brittle, and it's often quite hard to find those in good condition. Both of these figures have them. You can see that the Space Ranger Captain has one with sort of yellow and blue detailing on it, and the Space Ranger has one in red and blue that you can see here. Now I've seen a few people online sort of make these, and I've sort of worked out from what they've been doing a good way of recreating them myself. But the first thing I really needed to do was actually to make a version of this graphic that I could use to go onto the figure. So I scanned in one of these original tabards, took it into Photoshop and reworked it, and from that I was able to make both a Space Ranger version and also a Space Ranger Captain version. After about an hour's work, I ended up with this, which is a file that now has both versions of the artwork in it. You can see here this is the Space Ranger and this is the Space Ranger Captain, different colour, and it does have a little C there printed on the top. And now I have this file, it also means that I can actually make custom versions of this. So if I want to change any of the detailing or change the wording or change the colours, I can easily do that. And you'll notice that these are printed backwards, and the reason for that is because these have been printed onto iron-on transfer paper, the sort of stuff that you would buy to iron images onto t-shirts, and that is exactly what this is. Now I've already had a go at printing some of these with some printer paper that I had in stock here, which was this stuff, which didn't actually work particularly well. This is iron-on printer paper where you iron it on, you get everything really hot, and while everything is hot you carefully remove the sort of back of the transfer, and it just tends to, on the stuff that I've been working on, tends to actually take off quite a lot of the printing. So I've just bought myself some other stuff, which is this, which is some Epson iron-on cool peel. So you iron it on exactly the same, but you let this cool for a sort of a couple of minutes before removing the backing. And I'm hoping that will do the job sort of a lot better. I'll just show you some of my test prints so you can see what I mean. So the stuff I was going to print onto was this, which I built off a craft stall. It's an A4 sheet, it cost about £4, and it's a nice silvery finish, but it's on fairly thick fabric. This has got a sort of felt backing to it, and it was okay, but it was worth a test. So I did a sort of test print, as I say, with that printer paper, and this is what happened when I ironed it on. I got reasonable results. As you can see, it doesn't look too bad, but when I came to pull the backing off, it did take some of the print away, so you can see there's a bit sort of missing. So what I've done now is bought some different fabric as well as the different paper that I've got here. So let's take a look at the different fabric and we'll see what that's like. And this is the other fabric that I bought. This is called Faux Leather, sort of silver material. I bought it off eBay. It's much thinner. You can see that there's not much thickness to it. It's less than 1 millimetre thick, and I got so much of it for under £5. I think I've got half a metre, and it's about 1.4 metres wide for that much money. So I can actually make loads and loads of tabards if I want. And you can see that the sort of final detailing on it is fairly sort of fine. There's not a great deal of sort of pattern on that. This is what we're going to use to have a go at printing these new tabards on. So I'm going to cut myself a small amount of this. I'm going to set up my iron. With the irons, you set them as hot as you possibly can, and you have to iron over for a good few minutes. There are guides in the printer paper packs about how you go about doing it. So let's go and do that, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I had to go with that new stuff, and I have to say I've had some mixed results to not very good results, which is always quite interesting when you're doing something like this. If something doesn't work, you actually learn quite a lot from it. So this is the new iron-on paper, the Epson stuff that you're allowed to cool, and as you can see, it barely stuck at all. This was with ironing it for a full 5 minutes and then letting it cool for the 2 minutes that it's suggested, and you can see barely any of it stuck. So I had another go with that stuff, and again, not very good results at all. It was even worse on the second time around. So I changed back to using the original iron-on paper that I'd used, which I didn't think the results were particularly good, but compared to this Epson stuff, they were very good. So I tried with that, and you can see I got slightly better results. It did start to stick. I did one more, as you can see here, with the just the basic Space Ranger one, and again, sort of mixed results. Certainly better than the Epson stuff, but not perfect. So I think what is going on is the fabric now that I've used doesn't have a great deal of sort of surface texture to it. The ones that I did my original tests on, you can see here, actually if we sort of zoom in, you can see that there's quite a lot of sort of surface detail going on there. And I think that is what the transfer paper is sticking to. So what I've done is I've actually ordered some more stuff. I've been chatting to Gary Anderson, who I've seen has actually done some of these before and actually got sort of reasonably good results, and he suggested that I buy a different type of material and a different type of transfer paper. So I have ordered that, and when that arrives we will try again, because as you can see the principle of it does work, and we should end up with some very nice sort of tabards. It's just getting the right combination of fabric and transfers. I've also ordered some water slide decals, because it may be worth trying out. Water slide decals are stuff again that you print onto. You'll spray it with a lacquer to stop the inkjet sort of printer's ink running when you put it in the water, but then you dip the whole thing in water and it slides off the surface, and we might be able to slide that onto some of this pleather, but that may just be a sort of a wishful thinking on my part, but it's certainly going to be worth a go. But I've ordered the stuff, I've just got to wait for it to arrive, and while I'm waiting for it to arrive I thought I'd have a go at making myself some belts and holsters. Again, I've made a pattern for this which will be available on toy-polloi.com, and using the materials that I've bought I was actually able to make a very nice replacement belt and holster. You just need to use the patterns that I've sort of made, cut them out, and then I've got some little press studs here that you sew onto the end of the belt. These are available at most sort of haberdashery departments. These are called snap fasteners or press studs. You can get them in various sizes. I bought a pack of those, sew onto the belt, and then we just on the little holster you just have to sew along this edge. You end up with something that works really quite nicely. So I've just made a couple of those while I'm waiting for other supplies to arrive. So new supplies have arrived. This is the new type of material. This is called a soft spandex faux leather. So it is much more springy and rubbery. You can see there's a lot more stretch to it, and it is quite thin. It's got a reasonable sort of backing to it, but the surface of it has a lot more texture to it. You can see if we compare this to the other stuff that I just used, this is very shiny, not much texture. So this sort of faux leather spandex has got a little bit more texture to it. So that's the one we're going to try now. Still a nice colour, and it's sort of got a nice feel to it. And this is the new transfer paper. This is called t-shirt printing paper. This is by a company called Photo Paper Direct, and this is what Gary suggested. So let's give these two a go and we'll see what happens. And here we are, this is the new test. I think they are slightly better than the original sort of test that I did. Still not perfect. You can see I've still got a few areas where the print hasn't stuck, but overall that is not bad. By the time these are cut out and we've got a belt going on there, I don't think you'd see those little areas of damage too much at all. So that is not a bad test. And here is the test of the Space Ranger Captive one. Again, it's not come out too bad. There's a few little areas where it didn't print. I've actually made some changes to the file for this one because I realised that the C and the text there should be in dark blue. I'd left that being a sort of white. So in future prints it will be the correct colours. But those aren't too bad. I thought I'd give that new printer paper a go as well on the previous type of fabric, so this is the stuff that's got very little sort of surface detail to it, and you can see it does actually stick a lot better. The Epson transfer paper was terrible, but this one does seem to stick a little bit better, so I'm certainly getting better results. But I think this combination so far is the best one. The final thing I want to try is this, which is water slide decal paper. So this is the sort of stuff that you'd put on Airfix model kits and that sort of thing. So you print onto it. Again, you can print with an inkjet printer. You put a coat of clear varnish over the inkjet printer, and then you can cut it out. You drop these in some water and they slide off, and you can slide them onto your model. So they're ideal for doing solid surfaces, but I wanted to have a go and see if I could do this onto some of this pleather fabric. So I'm going back to the sort of second lot of fabric that I bought, which is the pleather. So it's got very little pattern to the surface. There's also no stretch in this fabric, and we're going to try it on that. So what I've done is printed out both of those Tabard images onto a sheet of this. I've sprayed it with a couple of coats of a clear lacquer, and we're now going to try and put that onto this silver pleather, and we'll see what happens. Initial results on this are looking really good. It was a little bit of a challenge to get the water slide decals to actually sort of sit onto the pleather, but with a bit of practice you can see I managed to get two that look really nice, and the colours on them are really vibrant. If we compare that to the transfer paper one here, you can see that's quite dull in comparison, so I'm hopeful that this will work. But the problem with these is you have to leave them for quite a long time, because you've got to let all the water underneath evaporate. The instructions say to leave them for at least 24 hours, so that is what I'm going to do. And after that, whether the stuff has actually stuck to this material at all, only time will tell. At the moment they do look very nice, but it could be that as we start to sort of bend them and move them, it just cracks off. I will also give them one more coat of sort of a lacquer spray once everything is dry, but for now just got to leave this for 24 hours and let everything dry, all the water evaporate, and we'll see what these look like tomorrow. But I'm very hopeful, but sometimes with these projects what looks good at one point can go horribly wrong, so let's see what happens tomorrow. It's now 24 hours later and everything still seems to have stuck very nicely, so I think the next thing to do is actually just to cut this out. On the patterns that I've made, you can see there's a slight grey line around the outside. All of that needs cutting off, so we're just left with a sort of thin silver strip around the design. We've also got to cut out this hole in the middle, and then I'm going to use a knife just to cut some slits at these 2 points here on the front and back, and that's where the belt goes through. So let's get these cut out and we'll see what it looks like, then we can try putting it on the figure. And here we have the final tabard. I've just put it on this figure on the right, and you can see it really does look lovely. It's almost sort of as good as new, I would say. It's such a nice vibrant sort of shade of silver and really bright graphics on it. They have worked so much better than I thought they would. I was expecting to be using the iron-on transfer method and get sort of reasonable results, but using the water slide decals and the right sort of faux leather, we've managed to get an amazingly good result. I've also made the Space Ranger Captain one here, so this is all now complete with the little holster in place, and you can see as well that just looks so nice. It's so bright and so shiny. If we compare it to the one I took off this figure here, which is looking a little bit worse for wear, you can see it's quite tatty. This has really seen better days. Obviously this has been put on a figure quite a few times, the amount of damage there is around the neck hole there, but so if we compare this to the one that I've made, it really is quite a difference. Now this has been quite a process, as you've seen as well. It's been a lot of work trying to work out what's the best way of doing it, and I do want to say a massive thank you to Gary Anderson, who suggested the iron-on transfer route, which as you saw did sort of work, but I think I've managed to improve that sort of technique quite a lot and get something that I think is certainly a step up from that. So for this you do need two quite specific things. You need this sort of faux leather. I picked this up off eBay. There's a few different sellers selling it, and it's quite thin. I think less than 1 millimeter thick. It's got a sort of vinyl feel to it, and you can get quite a lot for not much money. As I say, I think this is about 1.5 meters wide by sort of 1/2 meter, and it was under £5. And then you need this sort of stuff, which is inkjet water slide decal paper or decal paper. Again, I picked this up off eBay. This is fairly expensive for sort of printer paper. I think 10 sheets cost £13, so not the cheapest, but you can do quite a few of these with a pack like this, and also use them for other projects. And I'm actually going to be using these on some sort of restorations that I'm going to be working on shortly, but it's very useful stuff, and I'm certainly glad I've got some now. So yeah, faux leather and these water slide decals, and that seems to make the perfect version of the tabard. The files for all of this project will be available on toy-polloi.com, so if you just need to make a new belt and holster, the pattern for that will be there, but also the files to make both the Space Ranger Patroller and the Space Ranger Captain tabards are there. And as I say, it might be that I come back to this and make some custom ones, because certainly now that I've got this file, it'd be nice to make some with maybe different wording, or a toy-polloi themed one, or just some other versions of it that can be put on to figures to make a bit more of an army for the Space Rangers. Now I hope this video has been of interest to you. If it has, then hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.